There is a specific kind of person who buys a perfectly good car and immediately starts thinking about how to change it. The car runs fine, it looks fine. Anyone else would drive it as it is and be grateful. But this person sits in the driveway and sees something different. They see what it could be. Within a week, there are browser tabs open, forums bookmarked, a list started somewhere, suspension, exhaust, wheels, intake, things that most people would never notice and this person cannot stop thinking about. Their friends don't fully get it, their family definitely doesn't, but they keep going, spending weekends in the garage, spending money they carefully saved, pouring hours into a machine that was already working. And here's the thing that nobody around them understands. They're not doing this for the car. They never were. If you've ever felt that pull, that need to take something and make it more yours, or if you know someone who lives for the build, this video is going to explain the real psychology behind it. Like this video and subscribe. We break down the personalities and behaviors that most people feel but never fully understand. Now, let's get into it. The easy explanation for car mod obsession is that people just love cars. And yes, they do. But loving cars does not explain the specific compulsion to modify them. Plenty of people love cars and never touch a wrench. What separates the modifier is something deeper than passion for the vehicle itself. It is a particular relationship with identity, control, and the need to create something in the world that could not have existed without them. The car is the medium. The real work is happening somewhere else entirely.
Psychologist Erik Erikson, in his foundational work on identity development, described one of the core human drives as the need to leave a mark. Not necessarily something famous or large, simply something that says, I was here and I made this. Modern life does not offer many clean outlets for that drive. Most people spend their days doing work that belongs to someone else, work where the output is shared, diluted, absorbed into something larger. The car mod is the opposite of that. Every choice is yours. The specific shade of the paint, the exact drop of the suspension, the sound the exhaust makes at 4,000 RPM. Nobody told you to do any of it. Nobody approved it. It came entirely from you. Psychologists call this need for personal expression through objects extended self-theory, a concept developed by consumer researcher Russell Belk. His research found that people do not just own objects, they incorporate them into their sense of who they are. The car stops being a car. It becomes a three-dimensional autobiography. Every modification is a sentence in a story the person is writing about themselves, one that the world can see and hear and feel as it drives past.
There is another psychological force operating underneath the passion that is harder to see but just as powerful. It is the need for control. Not control over other people, control over outcomes. The feeling that when you do something correctly, the result is exactly what you intended. Research on psychological stress consistently shows that one of the most destabilizing experiences a person can have is not difficulty itself, but unpredictability, problems that have no clear solution, efforts that produce no clear result. Life, in other words, as most adults actually experience it. The car mod culture offers a specific and powerful antidote to that feeling. You research a part, you buy it, you install it, you test it. The car does what you expected it to do, or it does not, and then you figure out why. The feedback loop is tight and honest. The car does not have bad days. It does not change its mind. It responds to what you do to it, consistently, physically, in ways that can be measured. For someone who spends most of their life in environments where effort and reward are poorly connected, that feedback is not just satisfying, it is deeply regulating.
From the outside, the obsession looks excessive. People see the money going in and do the math and cannot make it add up. They see someone spending a Saturday pulling apart something that was working and putting it back together slightly differently, and they genuinely cannot understand what is being gained. They assume it is about showing off, about going fast, about impressing strangers at a stoplight. And sometimes those things are true. But underneath the surface behavior is something most observers never reach. The person modding their car is engaged in one of the most complete creative and technical challenges available to them. They are solving problems that require both knowledge and physical skill. They are making decisions that compound over time into a vision only they fully hold. They are not showing off a car. They are showing, to themselves more than anyone, that they can take a vision in their head and make it real with their own hands.
Psychologist Abraham Maslow placed belonging in the middle of his famous hierarchy of needs, sitting directly between safety and self-esteem. Not a luxury, a necessity. And car mod culture creates one of the most specific and genuine forms of belonging available in modern life, because the community is built entirely around shared knowledge and shared obsession. You cannot fake your way into it. You either know your build or you don't. You either put in the hours or you didn't. This creates a social environment with a clarity that most adult relationships lack. There is a mutual respect that forms between people who understand what it costs to do this. The research, the money, the failed installs, the late nights, the parts that arrived wrong. When two people who build cars talk about their builds, they are not just comparing modifications, they are recognizing each other. That recognition, that experience of being truly seen by people who understand what you do and why, is something a lot of people spend their whole lives looking for.
Here is what people almost always get wrong about those obsessed with car mods. They think it is about the destination, the finished car, the final spec. But anyone deep in build culture will tell you the same thing if you ask them honestly. The best part is never the finished product. It is the process, the research phase where every possibility is open, the install where something unexpected happens and you have to think your way through it, the test drive after a change that tells you whether your instinct was right. The build never really ends, and that is not a failure. That is the point. What looks from the outside like an inability to be satisfied is actually something psychologists recognize as a healthy orientation toward mastery. The psychologist Carol Dweck, whose research on growth mindset changed how educators think about learning, found that people who find meaning in the process of getting better, rather than just in the achievement of a fixed goal, consistently show higher resilience, higher creativity, and deeper long-term satisfaction. The person who is always modding is not restless. They are growing. At the deepest level, car mod obsession is about authorship. In a world where most of what surrounds us was made by someone else, designed by committee, optimized for the average person, the modified car is something rare. It was made for one specific person. It reflects one specific set of values and aesthetics and priorities. No algorithm suggested it. No marketing department approved it. It came from one mind through two hands into physical reality. There is a dignity in that which is hard to find elsewhere. And the person who builds knows this, even if they would never use those words to describe what they are doing. They might say they just love the hobby. They might say they like how it drives. But watch them stand next to the finished build or the current build because it is never quite finished, and look at their face. That is not someone who just likes cars. That is someone who made something, and they know it. So if you are someone who is always planning the next mod, always researching the next upgrade, always seeing the gap between what your car is and what it could be, understand this. That gap is not a problem. That gap is where you live. It is where you think and create and solve and build. It is one of the clearest expressions of who you are that you have. And if someone in your life looks at your build and asks why you keep spending money on a car that already works, you do not need to justify it. You already know the answer. The car works, but you are not done yet. Share this with someone who understands that the best drive is always the next one.